Web browsers today offer a wide range of features that aim to get you to use them as your primary web browser. Whether it's individual user profiles, customization features, or AI integration, there's so much work being done. But an important area that has been of interest for many users for a long time is privacy. Are the top web browsers conscious of user privacy? And how do they compare? In this video, we're going to put the main web browsers to a privacy test. From tracking to user control, there's quite a bit to cover. Okay, so we'll be performing this test on 3 web browsers: Chrome, Edge, and Firefox. We will focus on default browser behavior, which means that we will be looking at web browsers as they come, so without any extensions or add-ons. We will test areas like tracking resistance, user control, as well as data requests. Let's start with tracking resistance, specifically fingerprinting. Now, if you're not sure what fingerprinting is, it's basically a technique that websites use to identify and track your browser by collecting unique details about your device and your browser settings. So those would include web browser type and version, your operating system, your screen resolution, and possibly other details to do with your time zone and language. Fingerprinting is different from cookies and is harder to detect or block. There is also the notion that your fingerprint becomes more unique the more unique your system is. For example, someone living in the US who owns a budget-friendly laptop with a 1080p display running Windows 11 will have a much less unique fingerprint than someone living in Belgium who owns a high-end system with a 4K display running Linux. The more unique your fingerprint is, the more likely it is for your device to be identified and tracked online. Now, there are 2 prominent testing websites for fingerprinting specifically, which are Cover Your Tracks and Am I Unique. On my high-end Windows PC, both tests report a unique fingerprint for all 3 browsers. But with that being said, there was a bit of an interesting phenomenon with Chrome, as the Cover Your Tracks test once actually classified my fingerprint as nearly unique instead of unique. But in terms of other areas under tracking resistance, like tracking ads and invisible trackers, Chrome and Edge offer partial protection, which means that there are gaps. Firefox, on the other hand, offers strong protection, and so it does appear to be better than Chrome and Edge in this area. Let's move on to user control. Now, for the purposes of this test, user control is about determining 2 elements. The first is how much control the user has over the settings of their web browser, especially those relevant to privacy. The second is about how each browser is designed, and the main question here is which browser has the most privacy-friendly design. In other words, when you access a browser's settings, how easy is it to find a particular privacy-related setting and turn it on or off? And how easy is it for the average user to have a basic understanding of what it actually does? The first positive aspect you'll notice when you go to the settings of each browser is the fact that all 3 browsers have a search bar, allowing you to quickly search for the setting that you're after, assuming you know what you're actually looking for. This can be especially useful for users who aren't tech savvy and wouldn't be as comfortable diving deep into the different menus to find a specific setting, as opposed to more advanced users who would have no issues. When it comes to tracker blocking, Chrome has the Do Not Track option available. Do Not Track, or DNT, is a setting that sends a request to websites, advertising networks, and analytics services to stop tracking your browsing behavior. It basically acts as an opt-out signal to indicate that the user prefers privacy over personalized content. The problem with DNT is that it's often ignored by websites, and so it's not very effective. Now, Edge has the DNT setting too, but it also has a separate tracking prevention mechanism which you can set to either basic, balanced, or strict. The balanced option is the default and the recommended option by Edge, but the most private one would be the strict option, which blocks most trackers across websites and prevents content personalization. The problem with this option is that it can cause websites to stop working, either partially or entirely. Similar to Edge, Firefox has a setting called Enhanced Tracking Protection, which is largely the same as what Edge offers, but on top of this, Firefox offers custom blocking instead of just a strict blocking option. Custom blocking allows you to block cookies, tracking content, crypto miners, as well as known and suspected fingerprinters. You can either block them altogether, but you can also pick and choose based on your preferences. For example, you may be interested in blocking known fingerprinters but not cookies. Looking at third-party cookies, the options to allow or block third-party cookies can be easily found in Chrome. The same option is available in Edge, but it can be just a bit trickier to find because of how the settings menu is designed. Firefox is a bit of a similar case in terms of difficulty, since that part of the settings menu is a bit more sophisticated. which is directly linked to the fact that Firefox offers more customization in terms of third-party cookie blocking. But what about usage data and telemetry? This is an important area of interest for users who actively try to make their browsing experience more private. Looking at Chrome, you can turn off the setting that automatically sends usage statistics and crash reports to Google, but I have to admit it can be a bit confusing to find that option. Edge is interesting in terms of how the equivalent setting is set up. If you go to turn off that setting in Edge on Windows, you'll notice it's enabled by default and you can't actually turn it off. But wait, that setting is determined by your Windows diagnostic data setting. So to turn off that setting in Edge, you need to click that hyperlink which will open your Windows settings menu, and that's where you can turn it off. Now there is a potential problem here. I'm pretty sure that option applies to anything that you run on Windows and not just Edge. So turning it off effectively stops sending optional diagnostic data across your entire operating system. Some may see this as a problem because of the lack of customization, but others may see it as a good thing because they may see it as being an option that comprehensively boosts your privacy as a Windows user. But definitely let me know what you think. On a similar note, the option to automatically send crash reports is actually disabled by default in Firefox. But the option to send technical and interaction data is enabled by default, and so this is likely the result of an assessment of what data Mozilla actually needs to improve Firefox. You'll notice the description for the crash report option mentions that reports may include personal or sensitive data, which may be part of why that option is disabled by default. You can think of it as an effort by Mozilla to show users that they care about privacy, at least more than other browsers. When it comes to password saving and autofill options, it's pretty easy to find the autofill and passwords menu on the left side of the page. There's a fair bit going on here, but nothing crazy. You've got your Google Password Manager, which allows you to manage your saved passwords. You've also got your payment method settings, address settings, and autofill settings. One thing to note here is that if you want to store your passwords in Chrome, or any web browser for that matter, make sure that you never download any suspicious files. Trojan malware like WhackAttack is capable of accessing your usernames and passwords that you store in your web browser, and from there, it can send them to one or more attackers, who can then potentially share them on large malicious networks that are accessible to even more attackers. But going back to the main discussion, it's also pretty easy to find the passwords and autofill menu in Edge, which is also on the left side of the page. The menu is a bit more compact compared to Chrome, but it's basically the same, just set up differently. On the other hand, Firefox compares the two menus that Chrome and Edge display separately into one menu, which is privacy and security. Because of this, it may be a bit tricky to find any password or autofill options at first, but you can still easily search for them in the search bar. Once you're there, you'll see that Firefox also offers many options, but nothing too crazy. Now, all three browsers give you many options when it comes to site permissions. You can modify those either while you're on a website or from the browser settings. With Chrome and Edge, you can change permissions per site or change permissions for all sites. You can also set exceptions for specific websites that you don't want to allow certain permissions for. Now, both browsers include a wide range of permissions that you can grant or block, but not all permissions will be relevant to all websites. This can mean two things. First, some permissions will be completely irrelevant, such as MIDI permissions for websites that have nothing to do with music. Second, in the event that a website is suspiciously using or asking for permission to use a function that it's not supposed to, you can block that website from using it. An example of this would be if you were reading a Wikipedia article and you notice that for some reason it has access to your microphone and camera, or is asking for access to your microphone and camera, which a website like Wikipedia isn't supposed to. Of course, it's very unlikely that there would be a breach like that, but it's always good to have control over site permissions. You can achieve the same outcome with Firefox, but the permission settings are set up differently than Chrome and Edge, and it can be a bit trickier to change permissions separately for each site. But what all three browsers have in common is that you can turn pop-ups on or off across all sites, and you can assign customized behaviors for individual sites. The last part of the user control test focuses on JavaScript, which is essential for many websites. Without JavaScript, websites can lose partial functionality, which means buttons may not work, menus may not open, and forms may not submit correctly. But websites can also break completely or not even load at all if JavaScript is disabled. But if for some reason you want to disable JavaScript, you can do so in Chrome and Edge, either for all websites or for specific websites. As for Firefox, there is no dedicated option to disable JavaScript when you go to the browser settings. Instead, disabling JavaScript requires you to access the Advanced Preferences section, which you can find in a hidden configuration editor by typing about config in the URL bar. From a user experience perspective, I find it interesting that Firefox separates some settings from the standard settings section and places them in the hidden Advanced Preferences section. This definitely makes it a little bit more difficult for someone who's just getting started or for someone who's switching to Firefox. But definitely let me know what you think about Firefox's advanced preferences section. The last test is where we observe how much data each browser requests and sends to various sources, which can be from or to third parties as well as from or to the developer of the browser, such as telemetry endpoints. Using the developer tools available in each browser, we can gain a bit of an idea of how much data each browser is currently requesting and sending when accessing a bunch of websites. What I found is that Chrome and Edge tend to make significantly more requests than Firefox. In some severe cases, Chrome and Edge made up to 10 times more requests than Firefox did, and a decent number of those requests were related to ads, marketing, analytics, and telemetry. What I also found interesting about Firefox is that it was blocking significantly more requests compared to Chrome and Edge, mainly those to do with ads and trackers. And as I reflected on this, I decided to go back and revisit my experience with using Firefox. And then I realized that ads were actively being blocked. That's on a fresh installation of Firefox, so no extensions, no add-ons, and no scripts of any kind. But what do you think about all three browsers? I mainly use Chrome at home and Edge at work, but I also felt rather positive about using Firefox while doing all those tests, and so it seems like it may have more to offer than Chrome and Edge in the privacy department. I'm definitely planning to do some more testing on other browsers, so I always appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. And feel free to let me know in the comments if there is anything tech you're interested in and want me to make a video about. Also, please consider supporting me by donating to my channel. I would really appreciate any support as I continue to bring fun and interesting content like this. Only if you can, of course. Link down below. This was the Wizard of Tech, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.